in the pod cave. And welcome back to a very special 175th episode of The Podmen. I'm Brad.
I'm Brian.
Podman Ron.
All right, we're here in the Pod Cave, 175 episodes. Who would have thought when we started this 10 years ago that we would be 175 episodes in by now?
I don't even think it's been 10 years, dude. It's only been like 7 or 8.
Well, it's got to be like 300 plus hours of us talking about nonsense.
That's sad to think about.
I wish, Brad, for the 200th episode, can we do a Podmen by the numbers? And I want to know how many hours we spent talking about The Flash.
Bosh. I mean, for those early episodes, there was a lot of hours talking about Flash, considering it's not even a blip on the radar anymore.
Hey, you know what? If the Office ladies can continue to drag up Office stories, and now they got a fucking book out there. So
right, yeah.
We can come up with shit.
So you're saying we need to be writing a book?
We need. We're going to follow suit with what they're doing. We're just going to write a book.
Yeah, that's probably.
We need an official podcast historian.
Well, we need an intern again to count those hours and everything. Yeah.
He's in his room. He mentioned something about getting on, and then he said nothing else about it. So,
well, he it'll take him a little while. He was a little quiet the last episode, but we'll, the more he's on, the more he'll feel free to voice his opinion against all things Bosch.
Yeah, the Office ladies were doing the talk show circuit all last week.
Yeah.
About their little book.
Their little book.
The book talking about the same fucking shit they talk about on their podcast. That same stories that you've heard.
Which were also on the DVD commentary.
Right.
So, yeah.
There's nothing original. Nothing original.
Good for them.
Good for them.
They're already rich.
All the Podmen are drinking. All right, well, we won't delay. We do have a little bit of review, movie review, TV review, and convention review. But first, let's see if we have anything in the news.
I can't decide if I want both ears in or out.
This
perfect. Talk right over the bump.
This just in, Podman Ron can't decide if he wants to wear 2 headphones or 1 headphone.
I just don't know.
Yeah, well, you give it a shot.
I'll try.
See if you like to hear Brian's news reports in both ears or 1 ear. Brian, is there anything going on in the geek world?
A little bit. We got a trailer for She-Hulk Attorney at Law.
That's right. I forgot about that.
I did too.
Everybody's playing. Again, this is what I hate about nerd culture. You give them a little bit, and they start bitching about it. You give them John Krasinski as Reed Richards, and they bitch about it. You give them She-Hulk, and they bitch about it. I mean, nothing makes them happy.
Guys, this is what we've talked about before, and we learned this, me and Brian did, and Brad, you did too, when we owned the shop, that nerds are assholes.
They are the biggest jerks.
Yeah. We used to think that they got picked on because they were nerds. No, it's because they're fucking dickheads. I mean, they're just jackasses.
Yeah, and they once again prove it with the She-Hulk trailer. Because,
they did. I mean,
again, the visual effects may not be finished quite yet or whatever, so she does look a little wonky. But that looks just like a John Byrne She-Hulk, right?
I thought, it was a little wonky, but I thought if you get past the wonkiness, I thought she looked fine. I didn't see a problem.
As long as it advances from what we saw here, you know what I mean? Yeah. But the problem is, you got to, you just got to be thankful for what you got. But the Moon Knight finale between Khonshu and Amit, it didn't look great. And then you've got the CGI from the Doctor Strange movie. That tentacle thing also did not look great. And so it's kind of like, well, shit. Like, this is the main character. Is she going to just is this the only time we're going to see her as She-Hulk, and 95% of the time she's going to be just regular old Jessica Walters? Are they going to really cut back because of budget and we just don't see her Hulk out? Or is she going to Hulk out a bunch and it looked like this? So, the trailer had a very Roger Rabbit-esque vibe to it, or Pete's Dragon, which for our listeners, Pete's Dragon was a film made in the early 70s, and they shot the film and then went and painted the dragon onto the cells. So it was a combination of animation and live action back then. But she looks very two-dimensional. So.
Yeah, she does. But, I will say that this, and probably just because it had the Hulk in it, this felt like it's a return to actually a comic book type TV show.
It would be nice. And I think it's going to be a comedy. I think that's the other thing that's amiss with people. They're acting like, well, there's a couple things there. They're acting like it's going to be, she's going to have her big bad Thanos fight. She'll have fights, but this is going to be more of a comedy than it is going to be an action show. And it's kind of weird that they changed the name from She-Hulk to She-Hulk Attorney at Law, considering you've already got, Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law.
Right.
So it's kind of like, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if they're trying to make that comparison just so they're like, hey.
I wouldn't think so, but yeah, maybe. Again, I thought for what it was, it looked okay. Again, it has a possibility of me sticking through it rather than Moon Knight. Because again, that looked like a very familiar territory to me. She-Hulk does. We see Hulk. We see She-Hulk looking like She-Hulk from the 80s or whatever. So, anyways, I thought it looked fine. Again, we shall see.
Yeah, it is what it is. We got there's an announcement that they are going to reboot for Hulu. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the film that made Sir Sean Connery retire from filmmaking.
I didn't think that movie was all that bad.
You didn't think it was all that bad?
Yeah, I really did. I didn't think it was all that.
I thought it was. It was. If it was meant to be a B movie, action movie, summer movie type thing, it's like, well, they succeeded in that. It was completely cornbally, and they added. Tom Sawyer, right? He was not in the comic book version of it.
Yeah.
But it was again.
They were trying to add an American literature figure to all this British stuff. So that's why they added Tom Sawyer.
Right.
But yeah, the comics are great and beloved, and they're Alan Moore. And so anytime, again, fanboys, when you talk about certain creators, don't they assume perfection. And so if they don't completely, recreate what happened in the comic on the screen.
Right. Everybody gets upset.
Right. But the flip side of that is, the most faithful Alan Moore film was Watchmen. Right. Not only did he film it, Zack Snyder filmed it like almost verbatim from the comic, he even went and did the animated interstitials of the Pirate comics, right?
But didn't he change it, though? He changed the ending. And actually, he made it better.
Yeah, so they changed it back for the HBO series. But, yeah, he changed the ending to kind of tighten it back up. I liken it to The Mist. Stephen King said The Mist movie has a better ending than his book, right? So Frank Darabont, he's totally got his blessing. Alan Moore wasn't going to give anybody his blessing no matter what.
Right.
So, but yeah, the Watchmen is probably the truest Alan Moore vision, and he still didn't bless it. You know what I mean? He still didn't say, "Hey, I agree with this film." He still said, "Leave it alone. Don't talk to me about it." So it's weird, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is good. It gets deep. It's deeply, kind of seated in literature.
Right.
To where, I don't know what audiences would get some of the references.
Yeah,
nowadays.
maybe right, yeah.
So
kids nowadays.
Yeah.
All right. Well, interesting, I guess. And speaking of reboot, or maybe a reboot or continuation, Daredevil may be coming back, kind of a continuation, right? And over to Disney Plus. Again, something that the nerds want is Charlie Cox's Daredevil. They're probably going to be disappointed.
Yeah, they're going to be pissed because it's going to be toned down because it's Disney Plus,
right?
And it's a different showrunner, right? So, it's going to be So, fanboys
what do you think? I think it's going to be more of a superhero type show than it was before.
I hope so.
But I think they're sticking to the same continuity as before. I mean, I think all that's going to be canon. So
I think it's going to be canon, but they're not going to reference it much.
Yeah.
Right.
It'll just be there. It's just there.
So. And
I'm actually fine with it. Don't get me wrong, the Netflix stuff was fantastic. I mean, I love the rise of the Kingpin and his origin story and the way he rose to power. But, it was more of a, I don't know, I'm kind of anxious to see what Disney does to it to kind of fit it more into the MCU.
Well, the Mark Waid Daredevil after Brian Michael Bendis left.
Right.
That's where it got not full superhero-y again, but it got like light and fun and, adventure-y. It was him. It wasn't just these, stark, he wasn't Batman. He was something different than just being a Batman clone. So, yeah, if they're looking for source material, the Mark Waid run is where to get it from.
Yeah, because there's really not any other. I mean, I know there's a lot of Daredevil stories out there, but I think they've kind of hit all the main ones that were like popular. I don't think they're gonna. Did we see a lecture in the TV show?
We did.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
So, what we didn't really see is, where, and it's one of my favorite, like, Frank Miller stories, but it's when Matt, like, loses his mind, right?
Which time?
I know, yeah.
Years. It's
the first time. It's the first time. It's when
Daredevil.
Kingpin blows up the law firm. Kingpin... he does all sorts of stuff, and then Matt's like most of the issue. Matt's like on the phone, like telling Fisk he's coming for him, and he's gonna kill him and all that kind of stuff, and then he like drops the phone, and you realize the phone was just like to begin a call, please insert a quarter.
I remember that.
And so he was imagining the whole time that he was talking to Fisk.
Right.
So
I do remember that.
So,
Born
Again. It's Born Again. Born Again's the storyline. So, but yeah, we're getting that. We've got they released the first image from Mindy Kaling's Velma.
Oh yes,
animated show.
Adult animated show, right?
Adult animated show, yeah. And so I guess it's Velma's origin story, and now Velma's of Indian descent. Yeah, and some people are having problems with that.
Well, you know what? I don't have any problems. I I could care less, but I don't know. I'm going to get political here.
Uh-oh.
But it's so stupid.
The views of Podman Ron do not necessarily reflect the views of all Podmen.
Trigger warning. Trigger warning.
Trigger warning.
It's whitewashing the other way around, but this way around it's not.
It's a little reverse. It's a little brown washing. A little brown washing.
It's like
I don't care. I don't care either way. I'm just saying that if it's the other way, well, yeah, even Iron Fist, for God's sake. Iron Fist was a white guy in the comic book. He's a white guy.
Right.
They cast a white guy on the show, and they said it was whitewashing. So I don't get any of that. But if they do the opposite and they cast someone of color for a white person's role, they get mad because someone says anything. I don't care either way. It doesn't matter to me. I wish they'd stick to the source material, because that's like we talked about in the episodes before. you grow up wanting to see, the closest representation of these characters. It's like I would never want to see a white Luke Cage, for God's sake. So I don't understand.
Good point.
But that's my whole thing is, I think that's what geeks are. We like to see the closest representation of what these characters are in these comics.
And then complain about
it. When they change it, it's like, well, that sucks. He looks completely different. That's not what he looked like in the books. So either way, it just I don't want to see a white guy take a role that's in the comic book or in the book it was meant for a Asian person or an African American person. I just want to be true to what came before, what's in the comic book, what's in the movies, the books, or what have you. So, that's it. So,
but
now I don't have to give a shit about Velma. Who gives a shit?
I just remember as a child dreaming that one day I would be able to see a Velma standalone project featuring a Caucasian Velma.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Linda Cardinelli will always be my Velma.
But here's the thing I don't like about the whole thing. I could care less, but when Mindy Kaling or whatever her name is, when she gets up there and says, people just have to get over it, I'm like, well, you're the only one making a big fucking deal of it because you're trying to get attention drawn to it. So you're going to make a big stink about it that no one really gives a shit because it's fucking Velma for Scooby-Doo, for God's sake. And no one's going to watch any of this shit anyway because no one wants to see an adult fucking Scooby-Doo.
I don't know. I think it's supposed to
be like $200 million.
Right. I think it's supposed to be maybe a little bit along the lines of like Poison Ivy or not Poison Ivy.
Harley Quinn.
Quinn, thank you.
Or Riverdale and probably that kind of shit.
Well, it's supposed to be an adult animated, goofy comedy type stuff. But now that you mentioned it, not to get into the Scooby cast here, but I think that didn't they have a direct-to-video type release of lots of excitement?
He's getting murdered over there.
I know it. No one yet. Brian needs to get people in the studio there to settle in. But there was a live
action. Y'all can hear him and I can't.
Oh,
hang on.
There was a live action Velma and what's her face, Daphne, straight to streaming movie. And I think Velma was Latino.
Was it straight to Pornhub?
It sounded like, but she was Latino, I think, in it. So it's like it's not that big of a stretch that they're making, Velma.
I don't really feel like it's a big stretch, but I hate when they draw attention to it.
Right. Well,
it's and I feel like because I knew it was coming. I knew she had done it, and I saw the drawings of it, and I was like, okay, well that's whatever, it's different, whatever. But then it's not the source material, but whatever. But then she makes out a big thing about it, and, people are just got to deal with it. And I was like, well, now you're just trying to stir up shit that's not really.
That need to be stirred.
You're right, PMR. If it's worth saying once, it's worth saying 3 times. You want to give it one more chance?
What I was going to say.
Hey, it doesn't matter to me. I don't really care.
It doesn't matter to me.
All right.
But she shouldn't be.
She's stirring it up.
Oh, my God.
That shit up. That Mindy Kaling, such a shit stirrer.
Whatever her name is.
All right. Anything else of importance before we get on?
Was she an office lady?
I think she was on The Office Ladies, yes.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, at one point she was. Let's see. I started scrolling through because PMR was rambling.
You had plenty of time.
That's pretty much it.
That's it. Nothing else.
Most of the news.
Nothing new from the Fast 10 set report.
Now, didn't we? I think Brian put out today. Isn't there another Thor trailer?
Tomorrow. Thor trailer's going to drop tomorrow during, the NBA finals.
Of course, yes.
Which we talked about this before. Like now, sports needs the rub from nerddom to get people to watch the game.
Over there. Yeah, get over there and watch it, boys. Well, yeah. Hopefully it will be something else. All right. We got a movie to review, a quick movie to review, hopefully. TV show, but I want to get into the con stuff. So let's go to the movies and the TVs first, okay? Is that okay with you, Podman Ron?
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Make me another drink.
Yeah, go get the old lady, get you another drink. And meanwhile, Podman Ron doesn't have time for another drink because he's too busy watching Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. As his ice is clanking in the glass there. Hey, baby, I'm trying to watch Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers for my podcast, 175th episode.
Thankfully, you didn't have to watch it in the theater.
Yeah, he wouldn't have gone by himself. You know that. You know that. All right, so Chip and Dale Rescue Ranger, I think is the name of it, right? It's premiered on Disney Plus this past week. Bringing back the old cartoon, but they're pulling a little Roger Rabbit-ish stunt to where Chip and Dale's are actors that were appearing in the TV show Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. And it's a mix of live action, animation, all different types of styles of animation, with the big shtick being one of them. We have no idea which one's which. One of them is the regular old 2D animation. The other one got the 3D CGI upgrade. So again, kind of clever, pretty cute, but overall, we watched it.
Yeah, well, it's Lonely Island, so it's the Lonely Island guys that did it. So that's why you're getting, that's why you were able to. They really did kind of push the envelope on some of the stuff.
That's why you were able to watch it.
That's why I was able to watch it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that's also why they were able to bring in as much
brought to you by Caramel Bird Dog
caramel liquor
flavored whiskey.
Every man's drink is caramel flavored whiskey.
Caramel whiskey. Yep.
I think John Wayne used to drink this.
BMR likes it sweet. So we
pour me a glass of caramel there, bartender. What? The Duke's drinking caramel. I said, now, partner.
Top it off with a little whipped cream.
Top it off with a little...
And a dash of cinnamon sugar.
Coke Zero.
No, Coke Zero. We'll be up all night.
So, I was kind of impressed with how much crossover they did with other animated, shows and the things they were able to bring in. So, to the point where it's like... they almost, Warner Brothers tried to do some of this with Ready Player One, and then again with that Scooby-Doo movie, and they didn't go as far as Disney did, which I would have thought would be the opposite. I would have thought Warner Brothers would bring in other studios a lot sooner than Disney did, but for whatever reason, they landed a lot of extra properties.
Yeah, so, it was a lot like I likened it a lot to the Lego movies or Batman Legos or whatever. That it was kind of like that, where even in Chip and Dale's, Batman makes an appearance as he's fighting E.T. So it was just those kind of weird, oddball things just coming out of nowhere, or things that were happening in the background, or different animation styles and stuff. That was pretty clever.
I think one of my favorite things is the town of the Uncanny Valley. I think that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I mean, they just came up with some really good ideas. It was, I wouldn't say it was original, but it was entertaining and it was fun to watch. So, I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, they brought in Transformers, right? They had Transformers animation. They had Scat Cat, MC Scat Cat from Paula Abdul's music video.
They had Skeletor and He-Man.
Skeletor and He-Man.
Arguing at a convention.
Hell, they even had Tiger from that terrible 90s Avengers. But the best thing was Ugly Sonic. I mean... that's the one. They had E.T. and Batman. They had Nickelodeon characters in there. They went... they referenced Lego, right? They had Lego references in there. Garfield... Rick and Morty, there was a Rick and Morty reference, which for Disney, that's kind of wild, right?
Butthead. You saw Butthead. You saw My Little Pony. Voltron.
Simpsons?
You saw Simpsons. You saw all of the characters that Seth Rogen has played, whether it be for DreamWorks or well, I think that movie was DreamWorks too. The Aliens movie was DreamWorks too.
It was.
Yeah, and then you had kind of like the crescendo of it all was Ugly Sonic, and they said Ugly Sonic was a cameo. Man, he was a major part of the
right.
I thought
the
it was a
movie.
major part. I thought it was hilarious. I thought that was so funny. I mean, to get a character like that wasn't even part of a movie. I mean, it was a screw up, and they went back and kind of made fun of fanboys for hating him so much.
Well, I thought,
No, I don't think they made fun of fanboys for hating him. I thought it was just like it's so bizarre. He looks so weird, and it was kind of like a zeitgeist for fanboys. They threw it in there. So
I thought it was pretty funny and maybe a little bit ballsy that the villain of the movie was Peter Pan. It was a Disney character, a beloved Disney character, was kind of like this rotten scoundrel type mafia guy almost.
Oh, you had Snorks in it. You had there's some other stuff I didn't catch. You had Snorks in it. And then when you got into the bootleg characters, which I thought that was a pretty ingenious plot device too. That all those those Walmart bin movies, like that's where they come from. Is all the bootlegs? They're actually
Those are the movies your grandmother will get you.
Yeah. Oh, man, I want to go see Cars. I bought you automobiles.
Right.
This is that movie you wanted to see.
Oh, shit.
But yeah, there was Care Bears in it. There was Patrick Star from SpongeBob. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty wild. Like the kids were just popping left and right about. And when when Ugly Sonic showed up, like that's the thing. Like Ugly Sonic, like the kids like fell out when Ugly Sonic showed up.
Hilarious. Yeah, I fell out too. I thought it was hilarious. I mean, unexpected. I mean, it was really and original. Good idea. I mean,
and Alan Oppenheimer did the voice of Skeletor.
Oh, really?
So.
Wow.
Yeah,
original voice of Skeletor. So it was a pretty good movie. Again, it's the Chip and Dale reunite. I don't know. Podman Ron keeps falling out. Now he's back in.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, and have to solve.
He does it not to cough. He does it not to cough, but then it beeps when he goes out.
Yeah.
So
I don't understand. You keep going in and out.
Yeah, I don't know. It just hangs up. I don't know what's going on with my phone tonight. It just disconnects. Yeah, it was a good movie. I'd give it a 4 out of 5. I mean, the jokes could have been a little bit stronger, but I thought it was a good movie. I'd watch it again.
All right.
Even the plot line with Monterey or with Monty, like it was basically like he had a Coke habit, but it was a cheese habit.
Right.
And he got in deep with the Valley Mob.
Stinky cheese.
I mean, it was like a modern day Roger Rabbit. It's like a modern version of Roger Rabbit. So I really liked it. I'd watch it. I'll watch it again, and I'd watch a sequel of it.
Wow! All right, that's a pretty big commitment right there, Podman Ron.
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Wow.
Good Lord! But I wouldn't go 4 out of 5.
Don't, Brian. Just give your number. Don't debate it, please.
I mean, I would give it a 3. It's worth watching one time.
I give it a 3 as well, even though I think I slept through most of it.
Right there.
I will watch it again only because I slept through some of it, I think. All right, but yeah, it was cute. It was a cute movie. What else? Any other movies? No other movies or nothing coming out quite yet other than Thor, and we're waiting for the trailer.
We've got Thor and Jurassic Park are coming up. And what's coming out the end of Top Gun. I want to go see Top Gun.
Top Gun's coming out this week, yeah. I got tickets for Thursday night. So
right. Well, there you go. Got to go see that sucker in IMAX, right?
Well,
I don't know about that.
Tom Cruise did say like he was like over his dead body Top Gun getting released on streaming. Like, but yeah, because we had talked about this, when I went to a blind screening in February of 2020, and they didn't tell us what the movie was going to be, and then I found out much later, because we didn't get in, we got cut off, like 8 people back from getting in to see it. Well, we found out much later, like, somebody was when I went to go to the screening of Guardians of the Galaxy, not Guardians of the Galaxy, Suicide Squad. I went to the early screening of it. One of the guys was there at the top, and he mentioned that it was Top Gun that they got to see. So it was ready February 2020, and Tom Cruise refused to let it get released on streaming. Probably, I mean, rightfully so. I mean, they created like a new camera just to film the cockpit stuff. But
well, I got to say, I mean, all the critics are loving this movie. I mean, it is really getting great reviews, and I think unfortunately, I'm going to have to suffer through the first one again. And I know when I saw the first one back when I was a young child in the 80s, that I didn't really care for it too much. I thought it was kind of stupid. And I was...
You'd probably be right. 5, although, if I recall correctly...
You were 5.
Would be Podman Jacob kind of loves Top Gun. Is that correct, Brian?
Jacob liked Top Gun. Yeah, he liked it a lot. It's the mix of, a great soundtrack, fighter jets, all that kind of stuff. It was volleyball game.
Yeah, and no plot whatsoever.
No plot whatsoever. But yeah, the movie, the box office for like 40 weeks. Top Gun was?
That was in the 80s.
It was popular. Yeah.
I mean, that's true, but yeah, for 40 weeks in a row, it was at least 40. So
Top Gun to me, when I think about it, it just reminds me of a long music video. I mean,
it's the Michael Bay, style of filmmaking. That's kind of like,
who directed Top Gun? I can't even remember.
Tony Scott.
Nah.
Tony Scott, Ridley Scott's brother. He's the one that,
God rest
his
in peace.
For that mouse?
God rest his soul. Yeah, Tony Scott.
He died.
So
all right. So
well, really, the only reason I want to go see this is because the critics just keep jizzing over it. So
Yep. Perfect.
You know what really kills me though? It's kind of funny, and it's like.
Mindy Kaling. Can you believe Mindy Kaling?
I mean, it doesn't really bother me, but hey, you know what? If he goes and he gives Top Gun Maverick a 4 out of 5 stars, the same as Chip and Dale.
Not these articles that are like, not everybody was invited back to the Top Gun reunion, reboot. And because they didn't invite, what's her name back?
Kelly McGillis.
Yeah, and it's like, well, no one wants to see that. I mean,
no one wants to see that dried up old Kelly McGillis. No.
I mean, she was like,
nobody wants them to cast age appropriate against Tom Cruise.
No,
who wants to do that? She should have taken care of herself better, and then they would have, casted her.
Yep, there you go.
I mean,
makes sense to me.
Tom Cruise like tonguing some old broad that it's like she's like 65 and looks like your grandmother.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, did we really think that relationship was built on bedrock? She was his teacher.
Well, now he's banging Jennifer Connelly, who is age appropriate,
and much more bangable,
and hot. So.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have went with a younger chick. That's what I would have done. But, what
if it was Mindy Kaling, though?
Oh, yeah. Unless it was Mindy Kaling. Nope.
Not buying that. Still, 4 out of 5 stars. All right, let's go to TV Land really quickly. All right.
I don't want to sound sexist. That's not sexist.
No, not at all.
It's not sexist.
It's more misogynistic, racist, but no.
It's more.
No, I'm just saying. I mean,
it's definitely a couple of ists.
No, but no one wants to see if Tom Cruise is like some ugly dude right now. No one would be casting him like in Top Gun.
You're right.
I'm sorry. I mean, that's just it. I mean, it's just life.
That's just life. Well, speaking of it's just life and beautiful old men, you want to talk about Picard here, Podman Ron? You seem to be the only one that's watched it. So Picard, sit back and get ready for this rant, Brian.
Yep.
I have to say, Picard is the only show I think I've ever watched, and it is a complete shit show. I mean, it is a complete mess. I don't know how you can pull in both John Delancey as Q and pull in the board and just make a total wreck out of this show. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. None of it makes sense. It's like from each episode it gets worse, and each episode doesn't seem to connect. I mean, the finale is John Delancey as Q is dying, and his last breath he saves Picard to them. But why did he do all this to begin with? He makes no sense to why he put Picard through all of this to only save him in the end when he's making backdoor deals with Brent Spiner's character to kill
Nudie and Sung.
I mean, and let's not even, like we talked about before, I was waiting for him just, Brent Spiner to wear a wig and say he was the ancestor, because everybody's an ancestor of somebody, and they all look like their future self. It is the most bizarre and most terrible writing I've ever seen in a TV show. And the last episode, I mean, we have Will Wheaton appears as a traveler. And I know the internet's all pissed off about it, and they all saying, terrible stuff about it. That, to me, was the only thing that seemed to make any lick of sense of the whole show was that. The character that really was the best character out of the whole Picard was this Rios character, and he stayed in the past, which makes no sense because Picard's like, you're going to change things, and they just let him stay there. I mean, he's going to change the whole future by staying there. I mean, it made no sense for him to stay in the past.
Well, isn't he the one in this season? Because I did watch the beginning of the season. He's the one. They said, "Look, whatever you do, don't lose your communicator." And he immediately loses his communicator.
No, but they tell him that. But all of them have screwed up. They kill Borg left and right. What are they doing with these Borg bodies out here in normal time? Did they vaporize them? I mean, there's a shitload of dead aliens that are in the past they haven't done nothing with. They just you have the girl with her eyes too close together, the blonde chick. Yeah, she becomes the Borg queen. And she starts all this, it's supposed to be a big shock at the end that she's the Borg queen at the very beginning of the episode. Why at the very beginning of the episode she just didn't reveal herself to begin with and avoid all this stuff? None of it makes sense. It makes no sense that Whoopi Goldberg's character doesn't even know who Picard is when she literally met Picard in the 1800s. It doesn't make sense that, Picard is having these flashbacks of his mother hanging herself, but there's no mention of his brother or anything like that. And he's having trauma he's 97 years old. And he's trying to get through trauma at 97 years old. Seems like he'd be past that shit by now. I mean, he's fucking 97 years old.
He ought to be tonguing some 80-year-old.
These issues yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, what?
So is this the last episode?
No.
Okay.
That's not one more season. They're dragging in the Next Generation cast. Thank God. Maybe they'll do something. But I don't know who wrote.
What can they do? I mean, all of these people are in their late 60s, mid to late 60s.
No, what they can do is what they should have been doing the whole time is this. Actually, after the first season was bad, but it wasn't as bad as this season. This season had so much potential. I mean, they had Q. They could have really explained why Q was really linked to Picard. Hell, Brian, you made a pitch in 10 minutes what they should have done, but they didn't at all. That, the reason they saved, we didn't even talk about Picard's ancestor, this Renee girl that.
Yeah, it's like, why did he pick her of all the Picards to fuck around with? Well, especially considering.
What kills me though is like she's going on a launch for this big mission, and she has, 2 days for launch, and she's having to see a psychiatrist because she's scared. I don't think they would have picked her for this flight if she's having mental issues. Well, it makes no fucking sense. None of this.
If you're going to bring in Picard's mother as a plot device, why would you have to go then also back, 1,000 years or what, 200 years or no, it's 400 years. Go back 400 years and screw around with Renee Picard when you could just say, hey, your mom killed herself. Q may have had something to do with that. He may have been fucking around with your mother.
You know what the whole thing was the kid. This is so fucking stupid. They didn't want Renee to go into space because she
finds a bacteria.
A bacteria that helps clean up the oceans and the atmosphere from pollution. That was it. And because she finds that, she makes Data's character, that Brent Spiner character, his ancestor, where he's not famous anymore. That's it. That makes no goddamn sense at all. Where what you said, Brian, was basically that, Q was trying to protect Picard's ancestry because of something she done for the Q continuum, which makes perfectly good sense. Now, you could have tied that in to why he was so interested into the Picard bloodline.
Lineage, yeah.
And why he was so tuned into it. But they didn't at all. They never did that. And it's like, that was the opportunity to not only explain this mess of a story, but to also explain why he was so interested in Picard all these years.
It's something else that's probably, again, I haven't watched the last few episodes of it, but it sounds like there's probably, they also, the very first time we saw Q, right? And he kind of talks about Earth's history, and he gives us like snapshots of Earth's history up till then, right? Mm-hmm. And he talks about the drug wars? Mm-hmm. There was a war and like they were actually using soldiers and providing drugs to the soldiers because it was basically World War III. But it was like, and remember they even had like a little tube going into their nose where you thought they're like feeding them amphetamines or something, right? So in this timeline, when the hell could this drug war have even happened?
Well, it's kind of like when did the eugenics war happened in the 1990s? So when did that happen? With Khan and everything. And don't get me started on the last episode when Brent Spiner's mustache twirling villain is finally defeated. He pulls out, no lie, I swear to God, this is the only villain in Star Trek these days. He pulls out a folder that says Project Khan. And It's like, are you fucking kidding me? I wish they would just fuck. The Wrath of Khan was a one-time, it referenced an old episode of Star Trek, Space Seed, with Ricardo Montalban, and I swear to God, they drag that shit out. They dig that up every fucking time. Even in Strange New Worlds has a crew member that is an ancestor of Khan. And it's like, I wish they would just forget that. The difference between Marvel Easter eggs is it's an Easter egg. But Star Trek, when they have an Easter egg, it's like the part of the main plot. It's like they throw it in your face. It's like
they beat you over the head with it. Yeah,
they really do. You don't have to have, and it's the same Easter egg. It's not even like a little nod to something. It's like it's Khan. It's always fucking Khan, or it's always.
Well, they also. They act like the movies are the only thing anybody saw, so that's the only references they ever use.
Exactly. Instead of going, take a deep cut and go into some original Star Trek stuff and pull some of that, other episodes out and do something with that instead of always going to the Conwell. And that's what, in Brent Spiner, that last episode, he pulls out that folder and it says Project Con, and everybody rolls their eyes. It's like, oh, really? No one's going, oh, yeah, he's bringing Con back. No one's doing that. No one gives a shit. It's like, really? Everybody's thinking the same thing. Who's writing this shit? I mean, nobody wants to see that. This show should have been, that first episode was really strong. It had Rios, Captain of the Stargazer. Rios was a good character. At 7 and 9, she was a good character. Allison Peel was a character, but they just slowly just fucked up. I mean, I have never seen a bigger mess of a TV show that you'll watch the rest of this, you'll try to fit it all together. It makes no goddamn sense of what happened. None of it. I've never watched a show and at the end of it could not tell what the hell just happened. It makes no linear sense whatsoever, especially as a time travel show. I mean,
wow. This sounds like such a big disappointment to you.
Well, what's sad about it, I mean, you got Patrick Stewart to do this, and it had so much potential. And I'm not even one of these guys that are complaining that Next Generation people that, he's talking about these people are his family, and, the Next Generation cast should be his family. No, that's not always true, because people I worked with 30 years ago, I've lost track of them. So, it's understandably that you're going to lose track of people. No,
I never liked them anyway.
You're going to lose track of people that you worked with 20, 30 years ago. So that doesn't really bother me, but
people that used to hang out at the comic book store 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what those people are, but now these people are like, he's got this new crew, and it just made no sense. He just whatever. Rio stayed in the past, which made no sense. Allison Peel became a Borg. That made no goddamn sense.
None.
Raffi, I don't even know what the fuck she is, and 7 and 9 was just sad. So I don't know. It was just a really
no longer
big disappointment of a show. And I hope season 3, if they're going to end this with season 3, which they are, I hope they do a better job. They literally should bring in some old writers to finish this out, because this new stuff is just terrible.
What are your thoughts on them recasting Guinan?
You know what? I wasn't upset with it. I like the girl. She was fine with it.
No, I mean the new recasting.
With the girl that played her?
No. They're bringing Mindy Kaling in next season as Guinan.
Young Guinan. All right. So overall, you're saying don't even bother watching this mess.
It's a mess. Just to act like it was a dream. I wish. You know what? I hope season 3 starts out with Patrick Stewart getting out of the shower.
I knew that's the reference you were going to.
It was all a dream.
Yeah, our listeners love a good Dallas reference.
Yeah, we talk about Dallas way too much.
We do talk about Dallas
all right,
a
let's
lot.
wrap that. I still want to go to Megacon. Never have I wanted to go to Megacon more. I should have went.
You should have went. It was a good con.
It was a hit. Hey, real quick, I wanted to, before we get into that, while we're on the TV land, has anybody watched Killing It on Peacock?
I see those fucking trailers constantly.
You see those? It actually is pretty good. I may have only, I don't know how many episodes there are. I think there's like 4 of them. First one you may have to muddle through, but I think it's pretty good. Pretty
Y'all maybe
good.
watch that Success. What was it called? Not Success.
Severance.
Severance.
Yeah.
I didn't make you do shit.
All right. So only
that was Jacob
and Suzanne. Love that. Yeah.
They can start their own podcast.
they can do their Severance podcast. No, well, Killing
Alex
It.
loved it too. Absolute Alex loved it.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I guess only the brainy people love it. Killing It is lowbrow humor that I think you'll enjoy, Podman Ron. 30-minute episodes, Killing It on Peacock.
What's it about?
It's Craig Robinson, Daryl from The Office. You may know him as Daryl from The Office. And he's trying to get money to start his own company, and he goes through, I guess, he starts killing snakes for a living. There's a big snake hunt somewhere or another in Florida where, backwood things happen constantly in Florida, of course. But they go hunt pythons annually in Florida, and I think is a real thing. And
you get they put a bounty on them, so I guess you get a certain amount of money for each one you kill and bring in.
Right, and he's trying to raise money for a business or whatever. And
this is a show?
It's a show. It's actually pretty funny.
I do have a show I started watching. Absolute Alex recommended.
Oh.
And it's a 30-minute episode show, and it's all right. It's not a laugh out loud, but it's pretty okay. It's called Hacks.
Oh, yeah.
With Gene Smart on HBO Max.
It's kind of a smart comedy.
Show. It's kind of got dark humor, and if you got 30 minutes to kill, it's kind of a quick watch.
Yep, I've seen that. I've seen the first season. The new season just came out recently.
Yeah, I would recommend it.
Okay. Kind of turns into a what you're looking at. And then at some point we need to talk about Barry, Brian.
We do need to talk about Barry.
I have got to catch up on it. So go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well,
the other thing I've been watching, Barry, We Are the City?
Yep, I haven't seen that.
And then Bosch, of course, Bosch Legacy, which we've covered. And what's the other thing? Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul, excellent.
Right,
top notch.
Hey, speaking of excellent and top notch, let's hear about Megacon, Brian. This is the big shoe in Florida, and Podman Ron didn't make it down there. I didn't make it down there, but you were in full-fledged attendance. You went there all 4 or 5 days, whatever it was. Let's start because there's so much to talk about. You got the costumes, you got the collectibles, you got the comics, and you got the artist and the other miscellaneous stars here, right? Let's talk about the collectibles. What did you pick up? Anything good here?
Yeah, I got some good stuff. It was this was probably the best Megacon that I've gone to for like vintage stuff. Right, so like vintage toys and stuff. So I got some collectibles, got some vintage toys. I found, I guess the pièce de résistance was JSA is a certification company that's just started showing up recently, and they'll go in and they'll certify autographs. So they're kind of trying to take on like the CGC stuff, right? But JSA, what the hell does it stand for? It's the guy's name. But essentially what they'll do is...
Justice Society of America.
Yeah, I wish. They will certify at the show. So if there's a celebrity there that signs something at the show, they'll certify it, and kind of like Beckett Witness, they've got a barcoded certification sticker. They'll give you a certificate, a little certificate, and they'll register the item through their site, right? But then if you have something that wasn't from the show, and they'll do it right there. I mean, they'll register it, give you the sticker, send you on your way. And if it's only like $10 to get an item registered and certified, which is pretty cool. If it's an item that you brought to the show and the person wasn't at the show to sign it, you leave it at the table. They'll take an hour or two and they'll go through and authenticate the signature and then certify it. And that's between 20 and 35, depending on what the item is. It's still probably pretty cool to get a certificate of authenticity for something you could have bought 15 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, but do they? I mean, but let me ask you this, though. I mean, so say I got something signed by Stan Lee 2 years ago or whenever, and I bring it to him. How do they know he actually signed it? They just put their name on it and say, "Oh, you're honest."
No, they go through. They do a bunch of stuff to certify it, and what they do is they say, the certificate says it is our belief that this signature is original.
Do that business. What a business to go on.
James,
I believe this looks correct.
James, good.
James Spence Authentication. So, but I even asked him, I said, well, do you guys want me to tell you, like, when I got it signed?
No,
and they're like, no. Like,
no, we just want you to give us $25.
Yeah.
Correct. Now, across from the booth, one of their partner booths was a certified autograph booth, but all their stuff, they had a lot of sports memorabilia, a lot of certified sports memorabilia signed by, UFC, boxers, NBA jerseys, that sort of thing. So really stuff that did not fit Megacon.
Right.
But I think they kind of partnered with them for the booths. So it's kind of like, hey, well, they're using our certification right across the way, like that kind of thing. But JSA is not new, and it's the name is, it's actually called James Spence Authentication. Anyway, so at this booth, which they've got all the sports memorabilia, and they're kind of dead. They have a portal gun, a Rick and Morty portal gun sitting there.
Yeah, that was cool. I like that, man. That was really cool.
And it's a full size portal gun replica. You can put batteries in it; it'll make sounds and lights and stuff. I was, that's kind of cool. It's literally the only thing at this booth I would even considered looking at. And I go look at it, and it's signed by Justin Roiland. So I was like, "Hey, man, how's this? How much is this?" And he's like, "Well, it really should probably go for like $600-700, but
what? I hope you didn't pay that.
Oh no." He goes, "It really should probably go for like $600-700. He goes, "But back in our store, it's all sports memorabilia." So I got it for a song. But yeah, that's probably my Justin Roiland signed.
Nice, very nice.
Portal gun from Rick and Morty.
All right.
Yeah, I saw that. That was really cool.
But certified. So that was probably my big get. The other one, I got a ton of Joes that I needed, G.I. Joes that I needed, which is wild. I got like 20 G.I. Joes that I needed, and
I got one for you here that mutual friend of ours for you.
Okay, good. But yeah, so I've got so many already. The fact that I would be in one place and find 20 that I still needed was kind of crazy. It was a lot of international stuff that you don't come across. So I got that. I got Brad, do you remember a animated TV show? It ran for like 72 episodes. It started in 87. Have you ever heard of Spiral Zone?
Yeah,
It doesn't sound familiar.
PMR, Spiral Zone.
I've never heard of that. No.
All right, Spiral Zone came out in 87, well after Transformers, G.I. Joe, were in full tilt. Right. TMNT had already, Ninja Turtles were out. So they came out at the end of this glut of all these animated shows, and it was syndicated, but syndicated to, G.I. Joe was syndicated, but it was syndicated to where it's like, they couldn't find time slots. So Spiral Zone got relegated to weird time spots and didn't even make it into a lot of markets. But Tonka made toys for it. Right? And so Spiral Zone is, I'll get you one so you can see it. Spiral, one second.
All right. Talk about Spiral Zone amongst yourself with Brian.
So Spiral Zone, they did 7-inch, almost Mego style figures with tons of accessories, cloth costumes and everything. And then they did their vehicle sets too. Right? I probably go to like 10 toy shows a year. I have never, since I was a child, seen one of these toys.
Wow. All right. Something new.
And one of the booths, they have their iconic, it's called the Rimfire, is the big vehicle, but they had the main character. They essentially had their Superman and Lex Luthor, the show. They had Overlord's the bad guy. Dirk Courage is the good guy.
Nice.
And the main vehicle was called the Rimfire. The guy had all three. So I picked those up. I'm like, holy shit, I've never even seen these somewhere since I was a child. Got back home, went and pulled it up on eBay. The figures are going for like $150 each, and just the vehicle's $500.
Wow.
Which,
God. That's what I'm pulling his money part.
No. I did not pay this.
Oh, okay.
Like, I'm just glad the guy didn't look before he sold it to me. So, yeah, so I got that. Then we got our autograph stuff. We got, at this con, you had, it was the Cobra Kai was the big draw.
That's awesome, man.
So they had everyone from Cobra Kai with the exception of Miguel. Miguel wasn't there.
That was a really cool picture of you guys. Where was Jacob, though?
Well, he was off with his girlfriend, and they only allow 4 in a photo. So Tamara wasn't going to get in it if Jacob wanted in, but he was off with her, so it's fine. He's not in the photo. But yeah, so we got the photo with we did the team up photo with William Zabka, Johnny Lawrence, and Daniel LaRusso, Ralph Macchio. Right, so we got the team up photo.
Did they interact with you? I mean,
they were nice. Well, this was wild. It got Saturday afternoon was our photo session, and told us to be there at 3. Our session was supposed to be at 3:30, so we got there at 3. We didn't go back until 5:30. It was so off. Like everything was majorly off. And so, like, people are about to like riot, and so like one of the the volunteer people comes by and was like, and I asked, I was like, I mean, it's 5:30. This thing closes at 7. I mean,
well, what sucks is you wasted all your time.
Right.
I mean, you wasted your con time. That's pretty shitty. I mean.
Well, and I said that I was like, between this and I had a couple other signings that morning. I was like, between this and the signings this morning, I was like, my wife and kids, they haven't been able to go on the floor at all. We've just been in line for photos and signatures all the time.
Favor, fella.
So, she said, well, one of the celebrities is being really, really friendly with the guests. Ooh. And it's throwing off our timetable. So, it was William Zabka. So he was like, you could tell, man, this is his victory lap. He is loving all of this.
Zabka?
He's Johnny Lawrence.
Oh, okay.
Johnny Lawrence.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, so we got our photo with him. NECA did a 2-pack figure where it's, that's like a 7-inch, 8-inch figure, cloth costume. It's got the trophy. It's packaged to look like the All Valley tournament. But, so I got that double signed by both of them. And then I also got a print, not a print, but it was 11 by 14 where it's signed by all three, Johnny, Daniel, and Kreese. So, which I thought was cool. So I kind of loaded up on the Karate Kid stuff. Nathan Fillion was there. Kevin Smith was there.
Kevin Smith was there?
Kevin Smith was there.
Did you get an autograph from Kevin Smith?
No, I didn't get Kevin Smith. I got they had a ton of wrestlers there. Like,
wow.
2 kind of holy grail sort of wrestlers. I got Ric Flair. I got his signature, which
Nature Boy.
The Nature Boy, Ric Flair. I got him to sign my world title belt. And he wrote, Nature Boy 16 times. He wrote,
and
woo.
I will say this, Brian. I think wrestling. I try to get into it. I cannot get into it, but I respect that you're a big fan of it. That's really cool.
Yeah. So, but yeah, thank you.
Podman Ron, you finally win his approval.
I think that might be the whiskey talking.
Yeah, I think it might be. Come morning, Brian, he's going to be, fuck those fakers.
I'm no longer a disappointment.
Right. Yeah, just enjoy it while it lasts until that caramel wears off. All right, so you've met wrestlers, you've met movie stars, or something like that. What about some of the artists? You got some sketches.
Hang on, my mic popped out.
Oh my God! Well,
hey, mine did too.
Zip back up, buddy. Zip your pants back up and put your mic back in your pants. Well, so Podman Ron, while Brian's working on his mic here, we abhor dead air on the Podman, of course. I mean, what do you think? You would have really wanted to wait in line for 3 hours to get autographs?
Yeah, I would have actually.
Wow.
You know, when I tell you this, Brad, we would have had a good time. We could have went down there.
I would be bitching like a little bitch if I would have to wait in line for 3 hours.
I got a friend of mine. She goes down there, and shout out to my friend Joanna. She goes down there all the time. Well, not just, I mean, she goes to Dragon Con, and her friend go and get a picture with Nathan Fillion every year.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of cool.
That's kind of cool.
I mean, we could do something like that. We can just go and get pictures with these people and just do like a traditional picture every year. But no. No, bro.
Brian, your pride in Brian has only led to disappointment in me. I understand that.
Exactly. Brian embraces it. Brian gets the T-shirts. You know, he gets like whatever. You know, whoever he's about to take a picture with, he gets their T-shirt.
Yeah.
The whole family does. They look cool. They get in there and they look like they're having a great time. And I can't get you to go to get pictures
because I have no desire for it. I'm just as proud as Brian.
Don't you want to meet Ralph Macchio?
No,
come on.
I have no desire.
Why not? Why not?
It does nothing for me. It would do nothing but infuriate me to spend money and time waiting in line to take a picture next to some bozo who's on TV. That does absolutely nothing for me.
I mean, I've taken a picture with Stan Lee.
Yeah.
I've taken a picture, which he didn't even say a word. I'm still not convinced. I'm not convinced that wasn't a wax figure.
Right.
And then I did take a picture with William Shatner, who did say after I said good morning, he said good morning to me. Oh. So now I knew that he was alive. Yeah. But and he looks terrible in the picture, but so do I. But still, yeah, I know that's the interaction I have with these people. You know, I've got a picture now that hey, I met Stan Lee, and now Stan Lee's dead. So you know, there you go. I mean, that's picture me, Alex, and Stan Lee.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah, you can prove that you met Stan Lee. Yeah,
I know.
So it's a big deal.
Now I've got to meet Huey Lewis and have a picture with him, and you
blew that chance too.
No, well, that was because he lost his fucking hearing.
Yeah. All right. So who else, artist-wise, comic book artist?
Well, and one other one real quick. I got the Undertaker's signature, which the Undertaker famously was always in character.
He was dead.
No, and Paul Bearer's dead, his manager. But yeah, the Undertaker would never sign anything. Undertaker was always like he lived the gimmick, and not until the past, probably 2-3 years has he signed stuff. But he won't be signing stuff for long. Like he went into the Hall of Fame, so it's like his victory lap. So that's a big one, getting his signature.
So let me ask you this. I mean, you say his victory lap. Is he a millionaire? I mean, will he never have to sign again? I mean,
well, yeah.
No, he's just about to die. That's what he means.
Yeah, that may be true too. You never know with the wrestlers. When Ric Flair's booked another match, he's going to wrestle sometime next month at the North Carolina State Fair. So Flair could be. This could have been my last chance for Flair as well.
At a state fair?
Yeah.
Woo! Come on down to the North Carolina State Fair. Woo! I'm going to wrestle a pig.
He's been retired for like 16 years. So
let me say this: if I ever wanted to retire, like if I was in showbiz in my last hurrah, and I've already been retired, the last thing I want to do is for my people to remember me. My last hurrah
the
was
North
at
Carolina
some
State Fair.
fucking state fair.
Well, in fairness,
sad.
Gotta get the money for those Percocets, buddy.
I was gonna say, you got gambling debts to pay off or something?
Pain meds,
meds.
Honestly, I think he watched The Wrestler, Brad, and he thinks that's the way he wants to just go out. So
okay,
he wants
that's
to.
fair enough. That's fair enough.
But yeah,
so die at the end of The Wrestler.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty well assumed. So, and then bring it back just quickly to Daniel and
oh no,
Johnny. So Johnny was eating everything, eating it up.
What did Johnny do?
He was just you could tell he was having a blast the whole time, interacting with people, joking around with people.
I own cocaine.
He was taking photos. He was very high energy the whole time, and having little side conversations with people. Ralph Macchio was more you could tell he was a little more neurotic about it. He would look up at the crowd and be like, "Oh my god!" He wasn't rushing people, but you could tell he was kind of panicked, wanting to make sure everybody got seen. Okay. So the fact that the photo was 2.5 hours late, they blamed one of the actors. Well, it's pretty obvious it was William Zabka. But so I went and I talked to the kind of the wrangler for Ralph Macchio. And he said, to PMR's point about The Undertaker, he said flatly, he's like, because this guy is really good friends with Ralph Macchio. He said they've been friends for 20 years. Anytime he does a signing or something, this guy goes and runs the whole thing. But he said, look, Macchio does not need this money. He's like, he will donate everything he makes today or over the weekend. He'll donate it to charities and stuff. He's like, he does not need this money at all. He's doing it solely so that because he appreciates the fandom and wants them. He goes, he didn't need the money before Cobra Kai. Now that Cobra Kai is this huge hit, he doesn't need any of this money. He's just coming out and doing these shows. Man. Yeah, he's just coming out and doing these shows just because he appreciates the fandom.
That's cool. So
Kevin Smith, Nathan Fillion were two of the big ones. The Cobra Kai cast was probably the big one.
So let me ask you this. I don't want to interrupt, but what did y'all have any interaction with? I'm gonna.
Was Mindy Kaling there? I'd like to spit on her.
Did you have? What was y'all's?
I'd wait 3 hours just to tell her.
What was your interaction with Johnny? I mean, did y'all have some wacky?
Yeah. Did you kind of say, "Hey, you're a badass on TV"?
No, it was just. Because I didn't try to take up the time with him. We didn't do a photo at that point. We did the photo, because you could do a photo at the table or you could do the photos with the backdrop and everything.
Right.
And if you wanted them together, you had to do the photos. So we didn't do a photo at the table, but people that were doing the photo at the table where it's just him, he was taking even more time. I just said something So somebody said, is he photo and signature or just signature? And she was like, no, just signature. I was like, yeah, we got the photo tomorrow with you and Daniel. He's like, all right, see you tomorrow then. That was all it was.
All right, there you go. That's what you missed.
But here's the thing, what I would have been pissed about. Nathan Fillion and the four hobbits were there. So you had Elijah Wood, Sean Astin, right? You had the four hobbits
I hate
there.
Those fucking hobbits.
Well, hang on. You would have really hated this shit. So they
Yay. With the hobbit?
No, I did not. But when all the photos are getting printed out, they're all coming out on the same table. So you just go up and you look for your photo and you take it, right? Well, I was like, those photos look weird for Fillion. Wait, the Hobbit ones look really weird too. Look. And then I looked closer. They had a piece of glass up. So you had four hobbits over here, and then a glass. You could see the glass. You could see the glass, and then the person standing over here.
Wait a minute. So the people that wanted to take a picture with the fucking four hobbits had a glass partition between them and the hobbit?
And Nathan Fillion.
Bullshit.
Nathan Fillion ain't going to get sneezed on. He's no fool. Yeah, you're going to claim
what's
bullshit
worse is-
when Johnny comes down with COVID and dies.
I want to give or get COVID from the stars I take a picture with. If that's
fair
going to
enough.
happen.
At least have the risk of it.
Yeah.
What made it worse is they would do stuff like this, like,
Right.
yeah, they would like point. So they're pointing at the person,
so literally,
and then like 3 feet away, beyond a barrier, the person's like,
Womp, womp.
"You not pay for
Are you
this?"
serious? There's
Yeah.
a barrier between. Now that's bullshit, man.
That's bullshit. But I mean, Johnny and Daniel, they did not do that. It was we're right in the mix.
All right.
If I would have won, I would have got a LaRusso.
Oh, you'd have been
Brad
friggin'
would've
livid.
got a LaRusso pick. Yeah, damn it, Brad.
So,
All my fault.
so that was the celebrity portion of the event, right?
Okay, very good.
Now, I sent you, as far as creator side, did you guys see all the text of the sketch cards I got?
Yeah,
I didn't know any of them.
I'm so out of it. I don't know who any of those people are, other than Nolan.
That Spider-Man, that last Spider-Man you sent was really good. If he free sketched that while you waited, that was a really good Spider-Man picture.
So I got Umberto Ramos, Spider-Man.
What was that one I made a comment? Which one was that one? Who did that? And did they do it in front of you?
The Spider-Man one.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, that was Mike Golden.
And he did that while you were waiting.
Yeah, he knocked this out in like 8 minutes.
That was a really good sketch. That was a really really cool Spider-Man.
Yeah, that Mike Golden sketch is great. Did you notice this one, Brad?
What's that? I'm pulling them up here.
Tom King drew me a Kite Man, which Tom King's a writer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But kind of the inside joke is he'll draw a sketch if you ask him to, and they're just god awful. It's just a stick figure sketch. So Tom King drew me that.
Kind of like his comics.
Zing! What'd you think about that Batman sketch? PMR? Nothing?
Yeah, who was that?
Jerry the King Lawler.
Oh, okay. So a wrestler.
Yeah. Was that a wrestler that did that?
It's a wrestler.
Okay,
Yeah.
pretty good.
It's a wrestler, but he's an artist, and he's a huge
That was
Batman fan.
Great sketch. And I thought that was a wrestler, but I was like, wait a minute, because that was a really, really good sketch.
Yeah, it's so Jerry Lawler's a huge Batman fan. He owns a Batmobile, right? And so you can Google like his collection. He has a huge DC collection.
Now, Jerry Lawler, is that the one that Andy Kaufman fought back in the day?
Correct. Jerry Lawler, Andy Kaufman. Yep. So Jerry Lawler, so he had like the different like wrestling stuff to sign, and I'm like, shit, I got a sketch card. I got these sketch cards.
Pretty
I
neat.
wonder if he'd do a sketch, because I knew he did. Like, he loved comics. He loves comics. And he's done art for years. And so I asked him, he's like, yeah, I'll do a sketch. And he made a great Batman headshot sketch. And then I got Graham Nolan, famous Batman artist, did a Bane, a co-creator of Bane, did me a Bane headshot.
All right.
So some pretty good art.
Very nice.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was a good Batman sketch. And I was really surprised. I thought that was the wrestler, but I was like, no, that's too good.
That can't be Jerry the King Lawler.
No.
Lawler.
That's Jerry the King Lawler.
Lawler from WWE Hall of Fame 2007.
Yeah, I was impressed.
All right. So you are really impressing Podman Ron with all this wrestling stuff. I mean, he is so proud of you. He is so proud of you.
Now, other creators that were there, Freddie Williams the third was there. He's a really good artist. I talked to him for a bit. Freddie Williams. He does a lot of IDW stuff. So he's done pretty much all the Masters of the Universe stuff that's been done in the past 10 years has been him. He's done crossovers with Batman, Ninja Turtles, DC, or DC Universe and He-Man, Masters of the Universe. So I've done that. He's got so I've got a sketch card lined up from him, but he said he's gonna have to mail it to me. So I should be getting that one as well. They also had there at the con was Frank Miller was there.
Oh,
and that's a big
what?
Yeah,
Who doesn't like Frank Miller?
Me.
He's a little bit. He got a little bit nutty for Podman Ron.
I think Frank Miller was a hack.
He may have been a hack. He may have been a hack.
I never really was a big fan of his art, and I mean, I know he introduced the whole gritty, nitty realism to comics, and that's fine. I mean, I like his Daredevil stuff, but
Batman Year One, Dark Knight Returns.
I like Dark
Sin
Knight
City
Returns.
hack.
It was.
You didn't like Sin City?
I think Frank Miller came at a part in time where he introduced realism to comic books. And I don't know. I mean, it was good at the time, but I don't know. It just.
You're telling me.
If you go back and re-examine that and read that stuff again, you'd be like, oh, well, this ain't that great to begin with.
You're out of your mind because I've read it recently. All right.
Yeah.
So you're saying his Daredevil run, which we just talked about, Born Again is part of that. Death of Elektra is part of that.
No.
I don't say I hate it. I don't say I hate it.
He's just a little hacky.
I just say it's not for the time where what was going on at the time, where it was more of a I don't want to say a kiddie book, but it was more of a comic-y, like superhero kind of stuff. He introduced realism to comics, and it was edgy at the time, but I don't know. It just kind of like, if you reread it, it's like, I mean, it's not really nothing groundbreaking.
Yeah, I have. It holds up. All right. Now, so Frank Miller was there. Dan Didio was there, right?
Dan Didio.
Hi, Dan Didio.
Greg Capullo was there, right?
Greg Capullo.
Great. Adam Kubert was there.
I like Adam Kubert.
Right. So a lot of great artists.
Hack or not a hack?
Hack or not a hack?
Is this the big surprise here?
Oh, no. Hack or not a hack? Bob McLeod was there.
Oh,
I like Bob.
Not a hack.
But you know what the sad thing about Bob McLeod is? Bob McLeod is one of those artists he was the New Mutants. He was the first person that did the New Mutants. He started with #1 with New Mutants. Fantastic artist, really nice guy, but never really got the credit he probably deserved or the accolades he probably deserved.
Therefore, he's a hack.
I feel like he does these conventions to get, $20 for a sketch. But
it ain't 20.
But the sad thing is he's really a great artist, and he really had some back in the '80s. Like I said, the New Mutants. He was influential about stuff like that, but he just kind of fell by the wayside. Right. But anyway,
all right.
Hack.
Pat Broderick was there.
Hack.
We had
Pat Broderick was a Green Lantern artist.
And Firestorm.
Firestorm.
He co-created Firestorm.
Hack.
You had Mike Golden, which I've already mentioned. Greg Horn was there. You like Greg Horn?
Yeah.
So let's see. Anybody else? I want to mention Clay Mann is a great artist. He was there. Yannick Paquette was there. All right. So, and then probably, if you think like legendary, still living, legendary Marvel creators or Marvel sort of royal family people.
Wow.
Who comes to mind?
John Byrne.
Jim Shooter.
Yeah. You told us he was going to be there, though.
Did I? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Jim Shooter was there. People hated Jim Shooter. I mean, actually hated Jim Shooter, but Jim Shooter was huge in the '80s for Marvel. He was part of the whole Secret Wars stuff. He was like, and I may be exaggerating, but he was like how Kevin Feige is to the MCU, to how Marvel was in the '80s. And 80s to, I want to say 80s to early 90s, but it might have been late 80s. But I mean, he was the whole when I think of Marvel, yeah, Jim Shooter is definitely royalty. And I would love to have an autograph with Jim Shooter. From Jim Shooter.
I've got an autograph from Jim Shooter.
Hmm?
Yeah.
But I also talked to Jim Shooter for about 20 minutes.
Wow.
Really?
What did you talk about? What do you have to talk about? What do you have in common?
So it was today, towards the end of the con, like people are packing up and Shooter's just still sitting there. I mean, it's kind of like the same thing as Macchio.
Well, let's talk about Jim Shooter. For people who don't know, Jim Shooter was like huge in the 80s. He was the brains behind the whole Secret Wars.
Wait, didn't he just say this, Brian? I think you literally just said this.
I mean, people don't really know how big Jim Shooter was.
All right, yeah, so Jim Shooter was editor-in-chief of Marvel in the 80s. Right? And he became editor-in-chief. Was it right after Stan Lee, or was it Stan Lee? Was Roy Thomas editor-in-chief?
Roy Thomas was briefly, but I think Jim.
And then it was Shooter, right?
Late 70s to the 80s.
So yeah, so
Jim
you had
Shooter was huge in the 80s for Marvel.
Right, but Jim Shooter didn't write. He didn't write a book, so he didn't have the pedigree that Roy Thomas did or Stan Lee before him. Right?
Right.
But now, so Jim Shooter, though, you think of all, and this is one of the things I mentioned to him. Jim Shooter at Marvel was over, like you said, right? Secret Wars, which was huge for Marvel. G.I. Joe, when Hasbro was trying to get G.I. Joe off the ground, they went to Marvel, and Shooter is the one that put Larry Hama on G.I. Joe.
In all honesty, if it had anything to do with Marvel in the 80s, it involved
It's Shooter.
Yeah.
Transformers, right? When Hasbro then later came up with Transformers, they went right back to Marvel. They said, "Hey, we've got all of these we've got all these figures that we brought back from this Japanese toy show. We have, but American, in Japan, Optimus Prime was just, he's just a semi. They didn't even give him names. It was just like a robot that's also a Datsun. It's not. They're not doing it." Here they realized they needed the backstory. They needed that sort of, they needed to have personality, backstory. This one, they went to the House of Ideas, right? They went to Marvel. Shooter is also credited with a lot of the stuff for Transformers. Not only is he named several of the Transformers, and then I forget the guy's name, is the guy that gave the backstory. But when you think about G.I. Joe, you've got G.I. Joe, Larry Hama, Marvel. Larry Hama is the one that wrote the comic, which is still going today.
Wow.
And Larry Hama has written every single issue. We're approaching issue 300. But Larry Hama of G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. Larry Hama did all of the character bios on the back of the figure cards, on the file cards, right? Same thing for Transformers. All that stuff's Marvel, and all that stuff is Jim Shooter, right? He oversaw all of that stuff, right? So I went up a Shooter. He's just over there by himself. And I was like, hey, I forget how I started it off. I went over and I was like, how was your con? That sort of thing. He has a book, and this is how I kind of got talking to him. He has a book, a folio sitting out. And it's filled with memos and letters and photostats signed by Roy Thomas, Stan Lee. So all the stuff he got from working at Marvel, he just kept it. So all these. I mean,
I would love that. I mean, Jim Shooter, that was our time. Jim Shooter was 80s Marvel, that was the best time. And, people hated Jim Shooter. But in all regards, in terms of comic books, he was the best. He did the most for Marvel than anybody ever has done, other than Stan Lee.
And then we kind of get into that. That's kind of where our conversation headed. So I'm like, oh, man, this is incredible. I was like, because I've seen Shooter at other things. I was like, do you always bring this with you? And he's like, yeah, he goes, I bring it all the time. It's just this notebook full of all of these. It's just in the folio pages where you can slide the material in, and he's like, most of it's original too. So he's got just page after page after page of letters typed and signed by Stan Lee, letters typed and signed by Roy Thomas, letters typed and signed by you name it. He's just got this whole book of it. And I was like, this is great. I was like, I wish Paul Levitz about 10 years ago did that History of DC book, right? And the History of DC book is huge. It's the size of a suitcase. It literally comes in a case that you have to carry it around, but it's about 3 feet tall and about 10 inches wide. Okay. But Paul Levitz did that book, and I have a copy of it. And I was like, man, this would be incredible to like have compiled into like that book like Levitz did. And he goes, well, and I said, I'm sure you would have the majority of stuff of anybody, right? Outside of Stan, you would have more of this stuff than just about anybody, maybe Roy Thomas, right? And he's like, if you took all of my stuff that I've collected, you could fill up the entire table going all the way down Artist Alley, which was probably about 300 feet.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Of just letter, memo, all that stuff, promotional art, sketches, everything. So, character Bibles. So, we were talking about that. And then I told him, I was like, it's wild. Kind of what I mentioned to you guys. I was like, growing up, I'm 10 years old in 85. And like everything that I loved, you kind of have your fingerprint on. G.I. Joe, Transformers, Marvel, right? I was like, it's just wild that like that you specifically had so much intersection with everything that like a 10-year-old, like today loved then and still loves now. And then we started talking about comics, right? Present day comics, right? And so I was like, I find myself nowadays. I feel it sounds like I'm the one doing all the talking. He's talking the whole time. I mean, it's back and forth. It's not like I'm just talking his ear off. He's engaged. Like we're having a really good conversation. And I'm like, nowadays I feel like I read the old stuff more than I do the new stuff. Yeah. And he goes, yeah, I don't read hardly any of the new stuff. He goes, when I'm talking to guys, they're always telling me what not to read. So like his peer group, that's still around, they're telling him what not to read. Like, don't read this, don't read that, don't read this other thing. This is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And I was like, it's sad because, all of the good stuff is what they're using for the TV shows and movies now. But, the new stuff, where's it going to go? And I was like, and I said, do I take this step with them, never knowing? I was like, it seems like nowadays they're just, a lot of the times the book, they're just writing, to meet an agenda. There's an agenda that they're trying to put forward. Yep. And he's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. He goes, when I hired Larry Hama to write G.I. Joe, he goes, it's because I trusted Larry to write the book. Larry was in the military. Larry wanted to write about the military, and DC wouldn't let him. He goes, DC kept putting him on other projects. Larry wanted to write about military. He goes, so that's why I put him on the book. He goes, I'm not, he said to the effect, I'm not anything, like he was like, I'm not necessarily anything special. He goes, I just hired the right guy to do the right job. Right. And I trusted them. I trusted that the person I hired was the right person for that job and let them do what they needed to do. Right. Yeah. So as a good manager, he hired the person that he felt was the best fit for that job, and then trusted the decision and got out of their way and removed impediments from them completing their job. Right. So we were talking about that, and I was like, it's sad. And he goes, yeah, there's certain creators that are trying to get some stuff off the ground, where it's story driven, it's character driven. We're telling a story, not trying to meet an agenda, not trying to, that sort of thing. And I gave him my pitch. I was like, I wish, and I've said this on the podcast multiple times, I was like, I wish they would, and I mentioned us. I was like, when I'm talking to my buddies about this stuff, I was like, I wish the annuals were important again. I was like, you do 12 issues, a 13-part serialized story, 12 issues in an annual, and the annual's double sized, and that's where the story arc wraps up. Right. And you treat it like a season. And he goes, absolutely. He goes, absolutely. And I love the fact that you use the word season. That's what he said. I love the fact that you use the word season. He goes, because now people are trying to create a character that they can milk for 300 issues instead of just telling a good story. Yeah. Right. And if the story and the character dictates another chapter, go tell another chapter. Right. And I said, well, and also, that's if they're wanting to sell this stuff to Hollywood, if it's already gift wrapped with 13 episodes as a season, as a story arc, isn't that going to be easier to sell to Hollywood? He's like, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and then I said this too. I was like, plus they've kind of already got their storyboards done, right? I mean, they're getting to skip ahead with some of the storyboard work. And he said, well, yes and no. He goes, if they're buying a Frank Miller story, yeah, because Frank Miller treats the art like a camera.
Did he say that Frank Miller was a hack?
No, he did not say. He disagreed with PMR.
Interesting.
He said, he goes, Frank Miller, yeah, you could use his comics straight as a storyboard because he's taking it as cinematography. He's taking it as a film screen, right? A TV screen as it's walking through the story. So it's that visual storytelling, not just I'm going to throw people in weird, in the most crazy looking pose I can think of in this panel and then the next panel and the next panel. And if they're not fighting, I'm just going to have them be a talking head, right? So, and then he mentioned that, a couple of, he said Frank Miller's trying to get through Image, but get an imprint up and going where some of the older creators can come back and do stuff. Chuck Dixon's doing the same thing. Chuck Dixon's got Arctoons. They're doing a bunch of creator-owned comics, which is more the old style storytelling of back in the heyday of DC and Marvel, right? But yeah, it was a cool conversation. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that was said.
That's cool. I mean, what's
that's what it was. He goes, he when he was saying that about the storyboard stuff, he goes, the guys that draw the comics, he goes, this is the problem. The art is more important than the story, right? And so the artists come in so that they're not writing the comic to make money on the comic or tell a good story. They're coming in to get hot on the comic, come to a con like this, and this is his words. He said, and sell, cheesecake photos of these characters, wearing no clothing at these conventions, right? He goes, so story's not important. Art is, and that's like the Michael Turner. That's the Todd McFarlane effect on the industry, right?
Yeah, but I feel like the problem is, and he's right about that, but that's been like that for a while. But I feel like another problem is no one, and this is why we keep rehashing the old shit. No one wants to introduce a character if they work for Marvel because that character will belong to Marvel. So we keep rehashing the same old characters over and over and over, and there's no new characters because if they introduce a new character, if someone creates a new character, it belongs to Marvel. So like Deadpool, I mean, it belongs to Marvel. So no one's they're gonna hold back what they draw or what they write or anything, because if we create this character, it's going to belong to Marvel. So why are we going to do that? And that's, the industry is, and the wokeness of it is suffering. I mean, it's suffering so bad because of that. And plus it takes their storytelling is so long now. I mean, Days of Future Past, we've talked about this multiple times, was told in 2 issues. 2 fucking issues, Days of Future Past was told. But now, things have told in like 12 plus issues. And it's, I don't know, it's just, the industry is in really bad shape right now.
And that's essentially what he said. Like, it's not sustainable for several reasons, right? He said that, Marvel doesn't even have the backing of the direct market, right? So you can't sell at Walmart, right? You can't sell at, they've made comics so inaccessible, right? They don't fit in the direct market. And then all the comic shops are wanting is that hotshot issue that's going to sell. They don't care if the second issue sells. They need, they want to get that shot in the arm that, okay, we sold, 40,000 copies of this issue. It's canceled by issue 6, but at least, it was hot one time, right? That sort of thing. Nobody wants long-term gains. They want that immediate gratification.
Yep.
And then I also said,
on to the next thing.
And I also said, and when he was mentioning the whole thing about, art has supplanted story, and I was like, and there's no such thing as editorial anymore. I was like, there's no cohesive editorial across the books. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. I was like, it doesn't matter what's happening in this book. It can completely have nothing, same character in another book, never referenced.
Which is wild because the whole Marvel formula, and what's so impressive about the MCU is what they're doing with the MCU, and everybody's like all goo-gooed over it over the past few years, is basically what Marvel did in the 60s and 70s with the comic books. They made a universe that was, continuity was the main thing, and that's what they've kind of done with the MCU, with the movies, is make continuity a thing. And now, the movies are continuity, but the comic books are so fucking out there, that there's no editor to just check. Just write a story. It doesn't matter if it connects to anything or if it doesn't, just write it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just go do whatever you want, write whatever you want. None of this matters. We're just throwing stuff at a wall. Yep. So, honestly, and he said, I told him, I was like, I may read 2 books a week, right? And then where back in its heyday, I probably read 15 books a week.
Yeah, same here.
Maybe I read 2 books a week, and then I just jump into one of the old, the DC or the Marvel app and just read old books. And he's like, yeah. He goes, it's not sustainable. None of this stuff is sustainable.
And let me ask you this, and I hate to interrupt. Well, what is he doing now? Because I would love to see Jim Shooter back at Marvel, like trying to organize the books back to what they were. Because I feel like he could get them back to what they were, trying to base it on the old 80s formula.
That's never going to happen. And basically, the gist I got, he's basically retired. I mean, he said as much. He said, we mentioned Mike Zeck, right? We were talking about Mike Zeck for a minute.
Yeah.
And because I got a print signed, and so I was like leafing through, and I've got that Mike Zeck signed Mike Zeck print of Doom from Secret Wars when his suit's all ripped up. And he's like, what a classic cover. He's like, he's damaged and everything, but it's at heart of the lion. He's still wanting to fight. So I picked the Secret Wars print where it was Black Costume Spidey for the first time, and that's what he signed. But he said that Zeck was retired. Zeck's not signing anymore. He's like, Zeck's retired to the Bahamas. So he's off the table.
I'll be honest with you, I was never a fan of Mike Zeck. Wasn't. But he did some, he did Punisher. You got me a really cool Punisher picture of Mike Zeck.
I got him to do me a Captain America sketch card.
And he did Captain America. So, yeah, he was, but, it's just sad that Marvel has just, if you really think back to what's been classic, what's been like really the last big Marvel stuff, I would think the early 2010s would be like some of the newer Secret Wars or the Secret Invasions and stuff, but that's it. Marvel in the past 5 or 6 years, there's nothing sticking to them. There's nothing that they've done that has stuck. It's just crap. Everybody's just slinging stuff at a wall and hoping that it'll stick, and nothing's sticking at all.
But yeah, he did. I mean, he's just retired. The gist I got was like that these creators are talking about it. Like, it's not just, it's not like he suddenly had these thoughts because I'm standing there. Like, this is like simmering under the surface. There's this fight between what comics were and where these new creators think comics should be. Yeah. And they don't realize that it's all going to hit a wall. Like this, it's like this.
Hit a wall. I mean, I think.
No, I mean like hit a wall to where it's like we're going to see a major shift. Like a weekly periodical or a monthly periodical is in the current format's not sustained. You know what I mean? If the stories don't
go ahead.
If the stories don't connect, right, and the book and writing is behind the art, if you're not buying it for the story, it doesn't matter if you miss an issue. Right. If you're not buying it for the story, if the stories don't intersect and connect, well, you can just read one book. Right. And as much as I like a good creator on a book, the creators are the star of the books now, not the character. Right. You're buying the book because Jason Aaron's writing it, not because you necessarily care for that character. You're buying a book because Tom King's writing it, right?
But that sucks. That shouldn't be it, though.
Correct.
I mean, honestly,
people did not buy G.I. Joe because Larry Hama was writing it.
Exactly.
Right. So, but essentially, I think if he's doing anything, like they're all having these conversations, I think, honestly, he goes, there's other people that have talked about trying to get an imprint up and running and then maybe getting it published through Image. He goes, but of all of us, the one person that can get it done is Frank Miller. Like Frank Miller is the one that has the name, that has the notoriety to get this stuff done. If Frank Miller says he wants to do something at Image is going to give him everything he wants. And now Frank Miller comes in and says, okay, this is going to be, my imprint at Image, but I'm hiring Chuck Dixon to write this book, and I'm hiring Roy Thomas to write that book, and I'm hiring Mark Waid to write this book over here. And they start creating characters. Like, that's what we need. So, they would need an editor in chief. So honestly, if you were wanting to do this, you say, okay, look, we're gonna do an imprinted Image. We're gonna launch 6 books. Shooter, you're the editor in chief, and it's gonna be a murderer's row of creators.
Yep. Well, it's kind of like what Marvel did. They did that back in the late 90s with Heroes Reborn. I mean, they came and they got Kurt Busiek, George Perez to do Avengers. They got, they took popular creators and relaunched these books, and it was very successful. I mean, I honestly think that they need to, because right now the books are a mess. The best book out there, and I can honestly say, if the best Marvel comic book right now is Fantastic Four, and it probably doesn't get any credit whatsoever for what they're doing, but it is the closest thing that is old Marvel, that anything that they're putting out is the Fantastic Four. I don't know who's writing it. I cannot tell you who's writing it. I cannot tell you who's drawing it. All I can tell you that is the stories are really good. I mean, they're just They're classic Marvel stories. And the rest of it, I read Avengers, I read Spider-Man, and it is a jumbled mess right now. And if you can bring someone like Jim Shooter back into the fold and say, straighten this out, I think that's the only way you're going to save these books.
But that's not going to happen. What's going to happen? The question is,
it really isn't going to happen. But if it does, something like that doesn't happen, then we're not going to have comic books in like 10 years. We'll have them in 5 years, but in 10 years, I think it'll be gone. I think, DC's it's on its way out. I mean, you can honestly say that the DC universe is such a mess right now that it's on its way out. Marvel's following suit. It's trying to hang on, but when you're trying to appeal to an audience that is all internet and the young audience, they're not into comic books, but you're trying to appeal to them with all the woke stuff. But they're not into comics, so why are you trying to appeal to them so much? You should be just telling superhero stories and not trying to be woke and everything, and just get back to basic storytelling of superhero stuff to try to keep the people who do like it interested. But they don't do that. So it's just a big convoluted mess. And your DC starts over. That's a big mess. Marvel's a big mess. And the independent stuff I don't know. The comic book stuff, I would say in 10 years will not be around. I think DC will be done in 5 years. Just my prediction.
There you go.
I don't think it's not going to way. I think it's just going to be so completely different than anything that it'll be unrecognizable to us as the medium. It won't recognize anything like what we grew up with in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. But like, if there's any like indictment on the whole thing or proof of everything we talked about, it's two things. One, Jim Shooter didn't charge a damn cent for his signature.
Wow.
Not a penny. He would sign anything for anybody. He was just there for the fans.
What'd you get signed, Bob?
I got a print of Secret Wars, the Black Costume Spidey.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I bought the print. He's like, yeah, it's her prints. And but if I had brought something, he would have just signed it for free. Right.
Yeah.
So he's signing, he flew there, set up. He is still there 5 minutes after the convention has closed on Sunday night, still talking to me. So the fact that in 20 minutes, no one else walked up and interrupted me and Jim Shooter talking is an indictment on the comics industry right now.
I was just to say, that you had that much free time with Jim Shooter, no offense, but nobody like you was able to sit with Jim Shooter and talk. That's incredible, actually. That's really cool.
Yeah, I act like it was a great conversation, but it was a great conversation because he was bored. Nobody was coming up to him. Like for 20 minutes we went uninterrupted, and then when we did get interrupted, it was it Jose Garcia Lopez?
I don't know who that is.
Oh God, he was an artist.
He's a good guy. Good artist.
He worked on Why the Last Man.
All right.
He did a lot of Marvel stuff. So he's the one that came up and he was just basically asking Shooter if they were going to go out to dinner after it was all over. So Shooter's there.
With the dinner winner.
Yeah. Shooter. Well, I had Jacob to deal with. Shooter's there the entire con at this booth. The other guys left. They all started leaving at like 2:00. Shooter's still there at 5:05, 5:10, right? Talking to me, man, because nobody else approached him. Like, that shit's crazy, man. And that just tells you how bad it's got. So, As like amazed and thankful I am that I got to talk to Jim Shooter for 20 minutes. That shit never should have fucking happened.
But see, if I was some executive at Marvel right now, and especially the comic book state as it's in right now, I would seek out Jim Shooter and say, I would try to rehire him and try to get the books back to what they were. Because I honestly think that if you got the continuity back, got some creators back to what they were, I think you could bring them back. And I honestly think that with people like Jim Shooter, who hasn't really been doing much lately, I honestly think that he would come back at a decent comic rate. I mean, at a decent price and do good things. I think Marvel's wasting. They're not really trying. I think if they don't do something like that, I think they will be out of business. Not out of business, but I think the comic section will continue.
Comic shops will be out of business.
Yeah, actually.
Comic shops will be out of business.
Because I think of the way comics were in the 70s, and I know people are like, oh, well, it's digital now, it's different. And I get that. I understand that. But there is still a medium for it. There is still that you could do. And I think someone like Jim Shooter could organize classic Marvel and get it back to what it was.
That's the thing is, anybody that's in charge is not going to let go of those reins. Disney isn't going to listen to what we just said. Disney is not going to actually dissect and go, well, what went wrong, right? They don't think comics are going to sell, but they think they have this treasure trove of stories they can go back to. Well, no. Like the reason why the MCU keeps its diminishing returns is because they've already strip mined the good content, right?
And that's basically what I was trying to say, and I guess I'm kind of a little inebriated. But what I was trying to basically say is there's nothing I know basically in the past 5 years, there's been nothing in the past 5 years. Maybe in the past 10 years, I mean, you've had the newer Secret Wars and stuff, but there's nothing in the past 5 years that constitutes a Secret Wars or a Dark Knight Returns or a Death of Superman or any of the stuff that they've already done. There's nothing there. So, there's a fucking ant here. Fuck you, ant. There's nothing there. I mean, you see what I'm saying? Am I making sense?
Yeah, not really, but yeah, you're underlining the point I made over and over again.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, they strip mined all the content that's any good, and like they don't realize, wait, why is Phase 4 not landing? Because they're pulling from story arcs that weren't from Marvel's heyday. They're pulling from content that was during wasn't from the Golden Age, it wasn't from the Silver Age, it wasn't from the Modern Age. They're pulling stuff like from, and it's they've got the wrong people's ears. The wrong people in charge have Kevin Feige's ears, and it's all the agenda stuff. They're wanting to hotshot a book. They're wanting to get on the cover of USA Today. They want to get out of comic books because comic books are a dirty work, and they want to move to Hollywood.
If I was Kevin Feige, or if I was anybody at Marvel, or whoever the honcho is at Marvel right now for publishing for comics, in the state of comic books the way they are right now, what I would do is I would go back and hire your Jim Shooters, I would hire your John Burns, I would hire your John Romita Jr.'s, I would hire all your classic people from the 80s, the heyday of comics, and get them on these books. And say, look, make Ron Limbs. Where are the Ron Lim? I mean, get all these classic 90s, 80s, and 90s
Kurt Busiek, right?
Kurt Busiek. What's the guy? The guy that Peter David.
Peter David. What's Peter David doing? Right.
Get these classic artists, classic writers, get them back and say, look, get back into this. We don't want woke shit. We don't want political statements. Just tell a story. Just tell your next Infinity War. Tell your next Infinity Gauntlet stories. Tell your next Secret Wars. Tell your next Days of Future Past. Tell these stories. Get back to those. And quit this fucking hiring these fucking, I don't know who the fuck they are that are making everybody fucking either gay or fucking, nothing wrong with that. the quote, Always Sunny in Philadelphia, nothing wrong with that, but let's get out of the wokeness and get back into just comic books. I mean, I can read the headlines and read everyday bullshit. I can read Fox News or CNN or the local news to find regular stories, but let's just fucking get back into wild bullshit superhero fights and science fiction shit. And
I thought about this on the way home, right? There's a question I wish I'd asked him, which is kind of, I'll get to that here in a second, but the problem is semantics. It used to be, and it should be, this is a superhero that is black. This is a superhero that's gay, right?
Right.
But it's a superhero.
Yeah.
Now this is a black superhero.
I know.
So the important part is the race, not the important part is the part that the character has no control over. Their actions are backseat to what their race or ethnicity or gender classification is. Like they put that in front of what their actions are. They're a superhero. They're a hero. They're saving people. Yeah, but don't forget, more importantly than being a hero, they're black.
Well, and God only knows, I'll probably be canceled or whatever for this statement. But here's the thing. 12-year-old, PMR was reading, Luke Cage because he was a superhero, like he was just a superhero fought bad guys. I didn't think that he was black. I didn't even think about that. He was just a superhero fighting bad guys. I didn't think of his color of skin or, or his ethnicity or anything like that. Now, flash forward to, 20, 30, 40 years later, and we're being hammered in our, that it's more important that he's what his ethnicity is than that the fact that he's a hero. Well, I don't want to. I mean, I just want to hear him fight. I don't give a shit about all the other stuff. I don't know about all the other stuff.
Well, that's the thing is, like the whole point. The whole point is what really matters is the character, and what your intentions are, what your actions are, right? Like,
right.
I can't control that I'm Caucasian, right? I can control what I do, right? So if I choose to be a hero, that's the important piece.
Exactly.
Not, it's the circumstance, and then it's long story short.
Right. I mean,
all of this stuff is Megacon was good. We've got we're not telling stories. We're meeting agenda. The stories are there just as an excuse to get from one panel to the next. And the writers are in the back seat. The artists are in the front seat. And nobody wants to work in comics. None of these creators want to work in comics. They all want to get out of comics and become the next Stan Lee, Todd McFarlane, Robert Kirkman.
Even Todd McFarlane is not Todd McFarlane, because if you even think about, it's funny to watch those old that documentary about Image and how successful it was, and whoa, how crazy it was back then. But none of those creators, even Todd McFarlane himself, didn't sustain. I mean, no one really gives a shit about Savage Dragon. No one gives a shit about Spawn. I mean, it was popular for 10 years, if that, but they couldn't sustain it. It was just art, no story. I mean, it just
I mean, think about Spawn. Spawn, in its heyday. I mean, we're talking, in the issue 50 to 100 range, right? In its heyday, when Spawn was the hottest book out.
Right.
It was like 14 pages of story,
right,
and 8 pages of catalog. McFarlane Toys catalog.
It was garbage.
It was almost as much catalog as it was comic, and the story, for lack of, I mean, there was hardly any story, right?
But
it was just, and then it wasn't even McFarlane drawing it. At that point, it was Capullo was doing a lot of it. It was Capullo. Who was the guy
back then? Yep.
So
it was all Capullo art. But you know what? I mean, getting back to what we were talking about earlier, especially with Jim Shooter, Marvel is basically owned by Disney, okay, who has a shitload of money. So if you're looking at comics and you're like, okay, let's build this back up, instead of just throwing the same shit and letting the same people doing the same, your Tom Kings who, I honestly feel like the internet itself and Instagram and internet and tweets and Twitter and all that boosts all these writers and artists up, because the shit I've read is garbage. I'm sorry, it's garbage. I mean, I don't like the whole Vision thing that Tom King did that everybody, jacks off to. It's garbage. It's fucking garbage.
Yeah.
If you were to, honestly, if you have that much money, you hire all these old people who built Marvel in the 70s and 80s and bring them back. They did it before with Heroes Reborn, which was very successful. I'm not talking about Heroes Return is what I'm talking about. Heroes Reborn wasn't successful, but Heroes Return was successful. If you hire people back that were successful for the books, your Todd McFarlane's, not Todd McFarlane, but your Jim Shooters, your John Burns, your Kurt Busieks, your Peter Davids, you hire those guys back, you give them the money that they deserve, that to build this back up, the comic book medium, that they could mine for, for the films later on. You could build back the comic book market. Fucking quit this woke shit. Just tell stories. If the story happens to involve a gay couple or whatever, that's fine. That's good. But it doesn't have to every issue involve that. Let's just have fights and, battles and what it was back then that attracted everybody and move and go from there. But I think if Marvel or Disney would throw that money at these creators and pull them back together and say, okay, build us what you built back in the 80s and the 70s and the 80s and basically the early 90s, because the early 90s weren't too bad, then I think you could probably save this market. But I don't know. And someone like Jim Shooter could do it. I don't understand why no one's throwing money at him and saying, build us this, do this for us. I mean, you did this back then, because they are running out of stuff. I mean, they really are. I mean, there's nothing in the past 5 or 6 years that's going to stick. You're not gonna make a movie out of another Spider-Man clone story that they've done 18 million times. I mean, they're not going to do that. I mean, or the X-Men, whatever the fuck they're doing to the X-Men right now, where the Krakoa is its own nation. I mean, no one's going to do any of that shit. It's weird and it's creepy. And kind of just strange.
Well,
I mean,
and this is where it all kind of, I guess, all comes together. Is it worth fixing? Even if they did everything we just said, right? Does this generation want to carry on with these characters, right?
I think if they had a chance to, they would. I mean,
well, because Joshua, his souvenir yesterday was a pop figure.
Is what?
He bought a pop figure as his souvenir from the show yesterday, right?
All right. What pop figure?
Demon Slayer. It's a character from Demon Slayer. Exactly. So, Demon Slayer is a manga. Yeah, Demon Slayer is a manga that's had 23 different volumes. And it's now a TV show on, I think it's on Netflix. And I think they're already on season 2, right?
But Brian, I mean, but think about
hang on. It's on Crunchyroll.
I mean, if you were like in the 70s and 80s when we got into comic books, everything was simplistic, and that's why they get into this stuff. They don't want to get into stuff that's like they've started over like every 10 times in a year. I mean,
yeah, I know. I agree with you, but here's where I'm getting at though. So Demon Slayer, I'm like, what the hell is that? He goes, it's Demon Slayer, and like, one of our listeners apparently won the Megacon with a Podman contest because she joined us for Megacon yesterday.
Oh, nice.
So, but she, it's Demon Slayer. Like, you don't know what Demon Slayer is? Were you an idiot? And then I had to look it up, right? But so he bought the pop yesterday. The voice actor for the character was at Megacon, and he was like, "Could you go back and get this signed by the voice actor?" Because Joshua didn't go today. And I'm like, "All right, I'll get it." So I went straight there, right, to get to the celebrity area to get this pop sign. I got there. We took a while. We left a little bit later, so I got there roughly an hour into the convention. There had to have been 300 people in this guy's line, right? And so I'm like, I get in line, and the volunteers there, and I'm like, man, how long do you think this is going to take? And he goes, well, this is like 11:30, right? He goes, he's got a panel at 1. He's like, you ain't gonna make it through by 1. And I'm like, well, fuck that. So I left. I'm like, all right. He goes, but the panel will be over at 2. He goes, so just come back then. I'm like, all right. So I left. I leave. I come back at 1:30, right? They've cut the line off for the entire day.
Yeah.
For the entire day.
But,
and this is Sunday.
I get
of the
it.
Convention.
But here's what I'm talking about. I mean, that goes to say that, can you imagine, because what Marvel and DC, you have an artist or a writer that stays on a book for 3 weeks, 3 months at best, 3 issues, 4 issues, and then they just move on. I mean, can you imagine if you had like an artist that really was popular that stayed on an issue of something for more than 6 months, 6 issues, and you could get lines like that. You could get if a book is popular like that.
So let me ask you this. If your dad had said to you, man, you should really check out Captain America. Captain America is one of my favorite characters. You'd love Captain America. As a teenager, that's going to immediately turn you off the character. If your parents like it, it's inherently uncool, right? So that's the thing is all this stuff naturally going to come to a quasi-end anyway?
But I've got to look at the fact that what made me turn on to Captain America.
By the way, Brad's left. I think Brad went to bed.
Yeah, Brad's gone. But what made me turn on to the Avengers and Captain America anyway? I mean, what made me, and actually it was...
I think he may have stopped recording.
So what?
He made me stop recording.
He went to bed. But I mean, think about it. I mean, it's like, what made you start watching, getting into these books anyway? I mean, actually, it was Brad's brother that was in the Avengers back in the day. The reason I started reading them. But I don't know where I was going with this. I'm thinking I think people just got to get into it. I mean, there's got to be some consistency. There's no consistency in comics anymore. There's no main stories. I mean, there's no action. There's nothing really to draw people in. I mean, it's all political stuff and no one wants to read that. Like I said before, you can read that in the news. I mean, why would I want to read when I'm trying to escape real life, and why would I want to escape into a comic book that's going to just bash real life? It's the same shit. I mean, it's like, okay, I can read a newspaper and get that. Why would I want to, I don't know. It's just different. I mean, I wish they honestly, the only way they're going to survive this, if they can pull, I think if they can pull classic creators together, classic artists, classic writers together, and then the fans pick it up from that. You got fans that really love the medium they're not trying to do a political thing. They love the character. They love if they love to draw or if they love to write, whichever it is, they'll just continue with that. They're not trying to make a political statement. They're not trying to inject real world stuff. They're just trying to tell a story, that's it. I just think that's the only way you're going to save this industry
podcast
right now.
Oh.
This podcast, yeah.
Wow.
So we've really gotten into deep with the comic books. I mean, because Brad, I mean, like, it's so funny. We can go back and read the 60s and 70s. I mean, I'm starting over the Avengers from the 60s.
Just not Frank Miller. You just can't read Frank Miller.
Better skip that Frank Miller.
It's as silly as the 60s stuff is, and then the writing is horrendous. I mean, it is so goofy.
The art's horrible and the writing's horrible, but you loved it.
But it's great. I mean,
8 out of 5.
No, but I mean, I challenge any of y'all to read any of that stuff and not enjoy it because it's fun. The art is, it's really good because it's just simplistic. The stories are simplistic, so they're just fun to read. And I mean, they're a quick read, they're fun to read, but you read something from today and it's like, oh my God. I mean, how much shit do I got to read here? I mean, I might as well read a fucking book. I mean, this is not.
Look at all these words.
Oh my God. Words. Well, I mean, this ain't making no goddamn sense. I mean, just fucking hit somebody and be done with it. I mean, read anything from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It's just basic fights. I mean, it's just, you're just battling and, but this new stuff is just like, oh, they just drone on and on and on. I mean, do
you know it's midnight right now? It's like an hour past my bedtime, and you're talking about people droning on and on again.
Droning on and on. They just won't shut up.
Podman Ron, I think you really hit the nail on the head on that one. What is wrong with the entertainment industry?
I think I just finished that Bulldog whiskey.
Caramel whiskey talking. All right. Well, I think at 2 hours and 20 minutes for the 175th episode, I mean, you've certainly You two have made this a very special episode. Just
So, Brian, what do you got to say about
I'm sad to report it's going to be our last
Megacon?
one.
What was your... Okay, I guess we got all that sidetracked. So, Megacon.
No, we need to start wrapping it up. Wrap up Megacon for... Wrap up Megacon in one sentence here, Brian.
Very good con.
What do you give it out of
honestly,
a 5?
If I finished on a very strong note, if I hadn't had that whole interaction with Shooter, like it would have really probably been maybe like a 3.
Okay.
But that really kind of kicked it up to probably a solid
to an 8 out of 5.
8 out of 5.
This goes into saying, we need business cards. Did you say, won't you come on our podcast sometime?
Yeah, since you're doing all this free shit for us. Yeah. Jim Shooter.
Yeah.
You got nothing else to do.
It doesn't seem like he's doing anything else, so he could have been on the podcast.
He could have been here telling us himself.
Well, I
thought what's funny is
Brian, you were going to say that he needed a place to stay, so he's living here with me now.
Hey, Jim,
come on over here. Don't be shy.
Come in over here.
It is funny, like when we started getting into more like the kind of the conversation about what's wrong with it. He did kind of like drop his voice, where it's like, and I was like, if I did say, hey, can I record this? We wouldn't have had that conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't have gotten that level of honesty.
Whew. Is he trying to be politically correct?
Yeah.
No, I think he's the minority. He realizes he's the minority, right?
Well, that's politically incorrect.
Yeah.
I mean,
he should be proud of who he is. All right. Hey, let me ask you this. What's coming up movie-wise for us for next episode, if there is one?
Brad's trying to end this content.
We've got the big one is Top Gun.
Top Gun. All right. You guys will see that.
And I'm not going to I'll be able to record next week, Thursday, but not the weekend or the I won't be back until Sunday night the week after.
No, he's going off for Memorial Day.
Yep.
Brian's going on a little PTO.
Where are you going for Memorial Day?
Well, it's our anniversary and Memorial Day. We're going to we're going on a cruise.
All right.
So,
are you really?
Yep.
Where to though?
What, a Star Trek cruise?
I wish. No, just Eastern Caribbean, I think.
Okay.
Man, I wouldn't get on cruise. It's like COVID infested and shit. Jesus Christ.
But you just went to this convention.
You're going to be
I just went to the convention.
Scared
or something.
Brian is
this is something weird. I noticed this because I looked at Tara's phone for some. She took my phone to go work on the pool pump. It's not important, but I had her phone and her Facebook stuff alerts popping up, and I guess she followed the cruise. Like there's a group for the ship, and people are posting. Is anyone on the cruise this week staying in room C-192? Can you tell me about
They're swingers, man.
No. They're asking about. Is the room nice? How big's the bathroom? Is anyone on the cruise right now staying in this room? I'm curious about the room.
Weirdos.
What?
It's such a bizarre.
Selling on.
It's Princess.
Oh, with Captain Stubing and Vicky and
Gopher.
All them people. Gopher.
Isaac.
Is the kids going with y'all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's such a bizarre thing. Like, who would think to go, hey, I wonder if somebody's staying in our cabin this week and they can tell us what my cabin's going to be like.
Take some pictures. Post some pictures.
I wanted to go in there and go, hey, it's funny you say that. I'm in the room right now. I took a huge shit.
It's probably going to linger.
Are y'all going to get at the captain's table? Because that was like the big thing back in Love Boat days.
Back in the 70s, that was huge. Back when you loved them comic books.
Exactly.
Back when comic books were, Podman Ron, you were sounding more and more like an old Podman Ron.
What?
Talking about Love Boat and reading comic books from the 70s. And you wish you could all just go back to that. All right.
I was
Well,
like
listen.
5 years old in the 70s.
All right. So no recording next week. So we'll
Unless
catch
we're
up
going to do it
after.
Thursday.
When
Oh, no, I got tickets to, yeah, we can't
You're
do
going
next
to go be
Thursday. I got
seeing
tickets to
Maverick. Yeah, you ain't
Maverick,
gonna
yeah.
bullshit.
So where are you going? Where's the
Oh, Jesus Christ. He will not let this, he will not
Well,
let
he's
this
doing
podcast
that
in.
just I can still cut us off at any time.
Curious of where we're going.
I'm not. I don't have to wait for the tagline. I can get the theme music anytime, Podman Ron.
I don't know. Would you like for me to go wake up Bondwoman Tamara and she can go give you our cruise itinerary?
I know. Well, if she could take over for me, that'd be nice. All right. So
I don't know. It's Eastern Caribbean.
Eastern Caribbean. He wants to be nondescript about it. He doesn't want people following him around, Podman Ron.
Yeah, I don't want paparazzi showing up on my cruise.
You should understand
Like
that.
you're going on a cruise, man. That's like a damn petri
He
dish
just went
for
through to a
COVID.
convention with thousands of people standing next to him, breathing on him.
Different.
It was, I wouldn't even mention this, but Megacon was so packed on Saturday. They
told people to
ran
park
out of
somewhere
parking.
else. Yeah, they're like,
Yeah, they literally on Saturday it was so packed. They sent out an alert. All parking is full. Do not come to the convention
When you're
center.
living on the Pacific Princess, and you're like, you can't board anywhere because they got COVID
got the
outbreak. And
COVID.
the Pulitzer stuff.
That's fine with me.
Popped up.
All right, he don't care.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, hey. Well,
we
we
still
wish you a
recording?
happy anniversary and a good cruise. But until next time.
Save it for the podcast.